Episode 2 of Summer of Terry. Last week, I interviewed Adam Kaplan. I said, I don't know what I'm going to call this show. I ended up just going through my files, and I found actually a mutual friend of ours, Jordan, who signed this logo for me. I had made like 3 years ago because a friend of mine, he had said I had lost my job at Rogers. I had split up with my ex. I had sold a house. So like I just spent the whole summer playing golf. So all my friends were calling it the Summer of Terry. So I asked Jordan to make a graphic for me. I paid him for it, and he made it. And then as I was going through my files, I was looking for it, and I was like, you know what, that's perfect for the show. We'll call it Summer of Terry, episode 2 with John McQueen, one of our bloggers at Hot Sauce Sports. How's it going, buddy?
Good, man. Happy to see your face again. Happy to be on the show. I love the name. The Summer of Terry seems appropriate. So
Yeah, we're gonna have golf gear, everything. I think that's what we're gonna go for because it's
awesome.
cool. It's a little palm tree. You know, I can make something out of it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think like golf gear, like maybe like a polo or maybe like a crew neck, you know, something
Yeah.
like that, or a quarter zip, like a nice
Ooh.
like a nice quarter zip. I think I can probably come up with that. That'd be a good idea. That'd
Yeah.
be a good idea. Summer of Terry. Summer of Terry. Uh, so what's new with you, man? What have you been up to? Like what's the life been living in Calgary with that deep playoff run?
It was nice, I guess, for Flames fans, a little bit shorter than we would have liked. It was cool because we had a lot of like internal rivalries going on where I'm working right now. We have an office up in Edmonton, so a lot of friendly wagers and stuff going on, which was fun. Um, It's going to be an interesting offseason for the Flames because it's honestly going to go one of two ways. Either going to blow it up, depending on what happens with Gaudreau and Tkachuk, or maybe they try and run it back and try and squeeze every last bit they can out of this core. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see. The longer it goes without Johnny signing, the more nervous I think the fan base is getting. But um, man, he had a ridiculous season this year, and if he wants to get paid, now's the time. So we'll see what
Well,
happens.
you think they would pay him? You think Philadelphia wouldn't come up with a better offer?
That's yeah. See, that's kind of the question is like, do I think Philly would try and beat it? Probably. The Flames are pretty high up against the cap if they were to try and sign both guys. Um, if you ask me, I think that you should be going all in on Johnny, and if Tkachuk is the casualty in that sense, it's unfortunate, but he's a great grinder, great complementary top line player. He's got a hell of a shot, and I mean he put up points this year. You can't take that away from him, but I just think that as he ages and as the game develops, he's not going to be able to keep up with the pace of play.
No.
Um, and you won't have that issue with Johnny. He's a perennial just skill guy. He's quick, smart. Um, I don't know what's going to happen, but if it came down to one of the two, I think it's got to be Johnny, or else they're going to get rid of both.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, he's too good, man. He's just so sick. He's just such a sick athlete, and you can't lose a talent like that. And I think that Calgary has for a long time they've been waiting for a star like that. You know, I mean, Camilleri was the last one I can really remember. That was like
Yeah,
a
like
sniper
Camilleri or
like that.
Iginla.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. Or
once
again,
they
I
lost
mean,
Iginla, like they never really had that true dominant presence. Um, and Johnny's kind of that next guy to take that torch, I would say. So I
yeah.
really hope to get something done with him.
Yeah, you know what? And it's fun. It's fun to have all these Canadian teams back in the mix, you know, and it's, you know, seeing the Oilers and going to the Western Conference Championship and then beating Calgary, you know, it was in 7, I think it was in 6, still was a fantastic series. You know, you have Montreal, they're not fresh off, but you know, they're building for something. Toronto is the team that we know them to be, which is going to be a sick regular season team. Winnipeg, same thing. You know, they're still a gutty team, new coach now, so we'll see what happens with them. Did they sign somebody actually? Did they get a coach yet? I know Barry Trotz refused.
No, yeah, Barry Trotz kind of said he's not really looking to get into the coaching game right now. So
Oh, really?
I think they're back at the table.
So yeah, and there's that Ottawa's kind of like up and coming, but we'll see what happens with them. They've had a few front office changes as well. Who am I missing? I think it's pretty
They
much
also
it,
just
right?
got approved for a potential relocation into LeBreton Flats. So
Oh, okay.
if they can get that, I'm sure that it'll put some pressure on the front office to put together a team that will make it worth investing all the money into a brand new facility.
Yeah, I mean, because you always have to have public money, right, from any kind of support because you're still representing the team, right? So they need to have a financial say in what's going on with the team. So I mean, with the stadium. So we'll see
Yeah,
what happens with Ottawa, but I don't know. I was kind of, if I was a new kid tuning in to watch hockey and I didn't have a team in my city, I said that Ottawa might be a team that you can jump on just because they had such good young talent like Norris and Batherson and Stutzla and Kachuk, obviously.
Yeah. You're gonna have
Chabot,
Sanderson coming up next year.
just name it. They have so many studs coming up. So Ottawa's going to be interesting to watch. They might build a little rivalry with Montreal because they're kind of more or less in the same boat, you know? And so, yeah, but we'll get into like a NHL recap. The playoffs mostly. Avs win. They haven't won a Stanley Cup since 2001, since Ray Bork. Was Ray Bork 96 or 2001?
2001.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
And they do it, man. They beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, the invincible Tampa Bay Lightning, the Lightning that everybody thought. I thought every time they lost the game, I'm like, I can't wait for Tampa to win 4 straight. I can't wait for them to win 3 straight. And it just, you know, you're expecting it to happen because that's just how Tampa Bay is built.
Yeah, they were a well-oiled machine, man. They knew what they were doing. I think that injuries probably caught up to them a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, no point is a massive blow. Cirelli, you can tell, is playing injured. Like, I haven't seen the official list. I know it came out today, but I'm going to assume that was a pretty long list.
It's long. You have Nick Paul, Cirelli, Cogliano, Kucherov, obviously Point. I think Hedman was on the list too. They all had some sort of MCL, ACL, sprain, AC joint, this, that, like all these just nagging injuries, you know, and then top it all off, Point, who's their guy, their playoff guy. And he tears his quad against Toronto. And what else can you do? You know, Saturday visit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's tough, man. It's tough, but we have a new dynasty, I guess. I mean, maybe a potential dynasty in the Colorado Avalanche. I think that this team is, for what I mean, I remember seeing a meme. I don't know if it was a meme, it was just an image, and it was a picture of Eric Johnson. I always get confused. I don't know if it's Eric Johnson or Jack Johnson. I'm gonna say Eric Johnson. I feel like he's the one that's been there for the longest. Him, Landeskog, McKinnon, and they're just standing there, and it's like these guys were on the same team in 2016 when they went 17-48. You know, when they went when they had 48 points.
48 points.
Yeah, and it just goes to show, you know, like you just build around somebody. And I was explaining to my girlfriend Landeskog, and she's like, "Oh, I've never really heard of him." And she has like she remembers names. It's crazy. And she's like, I haven't heard of him. And I was like, Landeskog is like the best kept secret probably in the NHL. Like, people don't really talk about how good he is and what the impact that he had on that organization.
Yeah, he's not that flashy kind of draw your attention, especially when you got guys like McKinnon and Makar on the ice with you. But he's like that perfect, just skilled utility player that you can plug and play anywhere in that lineup, and he just makes his line better.
Anywhere you would put him, he would absolutely dominate, and that's just how he is. He's such a good leader too. And then you add McKinnon, Rantanen, and Kadri, you know, for what he said after the game that he was everybody that said he was a liability. I mean, he can't get mad at people for saying that.
No, and you know what?
Playoffs, he got tossed for the entire. He got sussy for the entire.
Yeah, and he definitely, like, I was super impressed with him from start to finish. Like, not even just his playoffs this entire season. But just the way that he was able to kind of not slip back into some of those old patterns where he was getting himself suspended. He just kind of kept himself going, and he didn't take any dumb penalties, didn't put his team in any disadvantages. And I mean, the fact that he came back from a broken thumb in 3 weeks, like, you know, he wanted it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think he had a huge chip on his shoulder, and he had to prove a lot of people wrong, and he did, and that whole team did, I think. And you know, I've been a hater I'm not a hater of Makar. I think I need to get this on the fucking record. People on Twitter do not understand my sarcasm. Okay, so I think that Makar is the best defenseman we've seen in a really long time. I'm just gonna say it. It's just a fact. It is what it is. But everybody's giving him all these awards when he can be the best defenseman that we've seen in a long time and not deserve every award. Okay, the Conn Smythe, I can't deny it. I mean, 8 goals and 21 assists for a defenseman. The guy played unbelievable. He played the most minutes. Like, it's just he had an amazing playoff. Kudos to him. Take it. My issue with Makar is the Norris Trophy. I mean, I really feel like Roman Josi should have won that trophy. It doesn't make any sense to me how he didn't lead in any of the categories and he still won the division. He still won the trophy, while Josi, who had the most first place votes, didn't win the trophy. That just boggles my mind.
Yeah, that one was a shocker. I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I really thought that this year was going to be Yossi's year for the Norris to be able to do what he did. Yeah, like, well, that's the thing. I wonder if part of it is the fact that like the wording for the award doesn't have that most valuable to your team that like the Hart has.
I guess.
So
But
maybe they're
still,
just trying to go based on purely statistical and like the eye test. But
yeah.
even then, I mean,
And then
to
anyway, I'll
to
end it
see what
out.
he
Yeah.
did just with a little bit of the scoring support up front that Makar had relative to Yossi. Like Forsberg had a great season, Duchesne had a nice season. But at the end of the day, like when you compare the firepower of McKinnon, Rantanen, Kadri, Landeskog, like there's a sizable difference in those two groups of players. So that's why I'm kind of like you. I thought it was going to be Yossi for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it should have been, and and Makar had a fantastic season, and they don't want to ignore that, and I get that. But when I see Yossi getting 4 or 3 third place votes, that just to me, or fourth place votes, whatever it was, that just to me was it showed you how dumb this voting system that we have in sports is. I don't
Yeah,
understand why there can't just be a committee and not like just like a committee of like maybe 10 to 15 people, a committee, they make their decisions on that, and it's ex players, maybe a current player, maybe a current coach, a current GM, a committee, instead
yeah.
of all the journalists from all their hometowns that are just going to vote for the teams that they cover. You know what I mean? Like it's a broken system. It's a broken system. It's like the electoral college.
I like that comparison.
I like it, eh?
And
Me being politics.
solving the world's problems.
One stupid tweet at a time. You know, people actually think that I'm Chris Chelios. Like I'll screenshot my tweets sometimes when I'm messing with people, and I'll send it out, and then I'll send it out to my buddies. They're like, "What the hell's Chris Chelios' problem?" I'm like, that's me, man. Like I'm Chris Chelios. That picture of him and my dad, I'll never forget it. I've had that picture for years. It's like the one picture I would keep. Like I'd probably go to bed with it. I go to my coffin with it. Just keep that fucking picture. I don't want anybody else to touch it.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
dad and Chris Chelios, and of course, my dad's better looking than Chris Chelios, that's for sure. But I digress. So, what are we looking at for the Avs like going forward? Are they going to be this dynasty? I mean, who's not going to sign? Who's going to sign the next couple of years? What's the situation there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. They've got a decent amount of cap space. They've got like the main part of their core locked up for like the foreseeable future, if I'm not mistaken. I still think that they're probably going to be on the hunt for a goalie. But they're probably going to kind of approach it in a similar sense that Toronto did, like trying to maximize value of a contract to try and just get the most out of a goalie. Um, I kind of expected a little bit more from Kemper this year, given like the roster he was playing behind. Not to say that he had a bad season. Yeah, I mean he's a Stanley Cup champ. Can't say anything negative about him at this point, but he just really wasn't that game breaker that he had kind of really shown flashes of with Phoenix. But way different circumstances in that point. But
Goalies
honestly,
they play different when they're in depending on the situation. I mean, like if you take Jake Allen as a backup role, he's one of the best. But if you put him at the starter role, he might not play as well. And I guess it's the same thing with Kemper, where he's like, if I have to be the last guy in Phoenix, right? If he had to be the last guy to make that save, and he's the only reason, he probably has this click that just turns the switch that turns on, and he's just going to shut it down. But when he plays for Colorado, he knows that he can let in 1 or 2 muffins, and then the team is just going to
that's
take
it.
over.
Yeah, no, that definitely. Like I always kind of wondered about that too. Is like maybe is it just the fact that he's playing on Arizona, that pressure of winning isn't nearly as intense as it is when you're on a Stanley Cup contending team. And not to mention like he's probably just facing a lot more shots on net in general when he's playing for the Coyotes. So it probably just gets him more mentally invested in the game, and maybe that's a little bit to do with it. But regardless, I just thought that we'd see a little bit more out of Kemper this year. And one thing though too that with Colorado at least, they did all this without Sam Girard. People just
That's a good call, yeah.
Like he was kind of just forgotten because of just the insane skill level that they have in Colorado. But man, you bring him back into the fold next year. You give Bowen Byram another year to mature.
Oh man, he's so good.
Yeah, like they're gonna have
good.
a super good top four that honestly any goalie can play behind. And they're still going to have that elite top six. I mean, if they can re-sign Kadri and make the money work, that would be awesome. I think that they're probably going to lose Nichushkin. I'm so bad at pronouncing his name, but
Nichushkin,
he's going to want to get paid, and I don't blame him. So, I mean,
after the playoff he had, I mean,
yeah, like I mean, it kind of, to me, part of it may just boil down to like what kind of depth forward do they want more? Do they want to
Yeah.
re-sign Lehkonen, or do they want to re-sign Nichushkin, and like how much are they willing to commit to that?
I mean, we'll
But
see what they do. I mean, they were able to get Taves for what was it, a second rounder?
2 seconds, yeah.
That I think that's like their best move that they've made, other than
Oh
drafting
yeah,
McKinnon. Yeah.
yeah. Their list of trades over the last couple of years is just like it's so funny to have that revisionist history aspect, or like that point of view, so that you can see just how badly like this highway robbery was.
It's crazy, man. I mean, it's you gotta love it though, because they weren't a team that just like just signed a bunch of players. They try to build something, and they built something for a long time. Like I mentioned before, they were on that team in 2016 with 48 points. But we'll see what happens with them. Who was like a big surprise for you in the playoffs? So all across the board, all 16 teams, player or team.
Player or team? That is a good question. I'll say Edmonton was probably a little bit of a surprise to me. And it's strictly just because I didn't see them even beating LA personally. When I kind of try and predict my brackets when the playoffs start, I base a lot of what I do on goaltending, and I base a lot of what I do on centers. And they've got the centers. I really didn't believe in Mike Smith, but the level of play that McDavid had, like that was just ridiculous. Like seeing it live too. I got to watch Game 5 in person. Like my brother and I bought tickets for that game, and it was absolutely insane. Like McKinnon just kind of imposed his will, and it didn't. McDavid just imposed his will, and like it didn't matter how you tried to stop him. He just refused to be stopped. And even in Game 5,
he's unbelievable.
In Game 5, if you go back to that game, for 65 minutes, Calgary had his number. They didn't give him an inch. He was completely shut down. And it's literally with a player like that, it took one moment where he just had like this 3 feet of space, and he ended the series because that's how good he is.
He's unbelievable, man. And he just turns it on. And
oh yeah,
people don't realize. I mean, I say this all the time. I think he's the most talented hockey player I've ever seen play.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he'll ever come close to Gretzky's numbers, but if he even smells close to Gretzky's numbers in terms of points or assists, I'm considering him the best player in the history of hockey.
Oh, 100%.
Because, I mean, as of right now, like Gretzky's number one. You can't deny it, but like you always have that little thing for Mario Lemieux. Like that's just the way I am. I kind of had this thing
I'm
like
the same way.
If he had played as long, would he be close to Gretzky? And they played in the same era, so I mean, more or less the same era. So it would be interesting to see. It would have been interesting to see like how far Lemieux can go, and now we're seeing it with McDavid, and maybe we're going to see Ovechkin come close to breaking that goals record. I don't think he will. This year was a big year for him to like kind of like bridge the gap, and I don't think he did. But it's interesting to see like the kind of the way the landscape of like the most points of all time, and we don't have anybody. I think there's only 2 in the top 50 that are active right now, and it's Ovechkin and Kane.
Probably Ovechkin and Crosby.
Oh, Crosby.
I know Ovechkin and Crosby are like neck and neck. Yeah.
And then Evander Kane. What about Crosby?
Patrick Kane, you mean?
Sorry, Patrick Kane. I mean, if Evander Kane was on that'd be pretty fucking intense. Yeah, Patrick Kane. I think he's on there too. But it just goes to show, man, like how different hockey is today. And for McDusty to be able to do what he's doing, him and McKinnon, the same thing. The way they can take it end to end with such speed and just make one flip of the hip, and all of a sudden the defenseman's jockstrap is in the upper deck eating with me, fucking steamies in the section, and they're just burying it, going top shelf with 2 inches to spare in front of the goalie. It doesn't make any sense that these guys are operating at that level. And that's the way I always felt about Tampa Bay as a unit, and I was rooting for them for the most part. But then my girlfriend made me go for Colorado because she said she's a Colorado Avalanche fan since she was a kid. So I was like, okay, well, root for the Avalanche. But I kind of was rooting for Corey Perry. I wanted him to get his cup.
Same.
And even though like he got the cup in his rookie year with Getzlaf, I feel like it's not the same.
No.
Yeah.
That's true. It's different when you're kind of like that young, kind of, full of piss and vinegar kid that's trying to make a name for yourself versus being like the established NHL vet who's just trying to get one more before he retires.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's Corey Perry. We're talking Hall of Fame. We're talking Getzlaf Hall of Fame. I mean, these guys are first ballots for sure. I'm going to throw a question to you that I heard on the radio today with our friends Sean Campbell and Mitch Gallo. and they asked what player isn't in the Hall of Fame that you think should be in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, I mean, I think this answer might be a little bit obvious at this point because his name's been thrown around. I think you threw it around too. Is McGillney?
He's the one. Yeah, I think it's just the one that everybody.
I think he should be in there. I think there's also some arguments to be made for a couple other guys. I would have loved. Yeah, I mean, I also would have loved to see Keith Tkachuk get in there, just for the
big wall,
the way that he played. Yeah, he was just a machine. He could do it all. He was a heavy player that had that scoring touch that I just loved watching him when I was a kid.
I met him once. He is a wide human being.
Yeah, I would not.
Fake.
Yeah, exactly. Like if he decides to go through you, he's going through you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
That's it. Yeah, Keith Tkachuk was one of my favorites growing up. Man, I loved him. He was so good. When I found out when he was American, I liked him even more. I don't know why. I feel like it was kind of like because you know how I am. I always like the kind of like the badass. I felt like the Americans are always like just like the badass team, you know.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't a lot of like pure skill. Like they had Modano and Pat LaFontaine. No, Pat LaFontaine was American, was he? Pretty sure.
I believe so. Yeah.
Dale Howard-Chuck, was he American? Or I feel like he was. I mean, Phil Housley, you know, Brian Leach, Mike Richter. You know, you kind of had like those guys, you know, and I was a big fan of that style. And so when like I just always rooted for USA if it wasn't for Canada. And then I jumped on the Finnish bandwagon. I'm a kind of a pseudo Finland fan. Finland hockey fan. Why not? Why not?
It was easy to be a pseudo Finland fan in Montreal when you got Koivu.
Yeah, exactly, man. I love Koivu for so many years. I actually had on my I did like one of those stupid Facebook things. It's like every day share an athlete or whatever. So like for 10 days I shared like athletes that I liked growing up, and today actually was Saku Koivu's when I put up Saku Koivu because I was there his last game. I was there when he came back when he was playing for Anaheim. I watched him in Anaheim against Montreal. I have a jersey with the C on it. It was an old Habs jersey that I had them put the C and Koivu 11 on it on his last day when he came to Montreal to play with Anaheim on that day, and I had it done. And I was always a huge fan of Koivu. Always. I mean, I don't think anybody can say they didn't like him. And apparently he had a huge wrench on him. That's the
that's the yeah.
But a few of his, I guess they're not Scandinavian, but we'll call them Scandinavian Patriots. Sedins, they're in the Hall of Fame. Roberto Luongo as well, and Daniel Alfredsson. So 4 players, 2 Canadian teams, no Stanley Cups amongst the 4 of them, but they had Hall of Fame careers.
Yeah, I think that we're probably going to start seeing that become a little bit more the norm now with guys getting into the Hall of Fame, just with the way that the game's built. Like we're starting to get into the guys who played in the cap era and like the era of parity sort of thing, right? So, I mean, you can still make the argument that the 2011 Canucks may go down as one of the best regular season teams in history, and they fell 1 game short, you know. And if they win that 1 game, if they win Game 7, does that change the narrative of the way that we perceive their career? Maybe.
It also changes the way we look at the city of Boston. I mean, they haven't won a ship since, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, they were 1 game, they were right there. They didn't pull it off, but I still think that they absolutely deserve to be there. I think Alfredsson is just that low key guy that he like carried that city for so long and that franchise for so long that it's great to see him get that recognition.
He's like Mike Modano.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I always compared them to. I don't know why. Like I just felt like they were big guys. You know, they were able to score. Very respected, well respected, like locker room guys, leaders. Stayed with one team for most of their career. The Babcock story to Mike Modano. Did you hear that story?
No.
So he had like a milestone to get to, like 1,500 games played or something like that, or 1,000 games played, whatever it was. And he was playing with the Detroit Red Wings, and Mike Babcock healthy scratched him for no reason on his last game of his career to pass the record. Just to hit the milestone. It wasn't even a record. Healthy scratch.
Yeah. Anyway. That's brutal.
Let's talk positively about Alfredsson.
Yeah.
Alfredsson, Heatley, and Spezza. Like, are Heatley and Spezza going to get in? I don't think so, but Spezza has more of a case.
Heatley definitely not. Spezza, maybe he's got a case. I would have to look at his numbers again, but that'd be interesting to see. You know, he had a good career as well. He had like these weird kind of fluctuations, I think, a little bit too. Is that he had like a couple of missed seasons, and then a couple of just absolutely out of this world seasons.
Spezza, he's a Stahl brother. I always felt like he was kind of like in the same way. It's like you never knew kind of where he was playing, but you knew he was there.
Yeah,
and he would
exactly.
always he would just be like at 50 points, maybe 40. He'll be around there. Like I always felt he was like a Jordan Staal-esque like kind of player.
Yeah. And the thing too is like, I don't know about you, but when I think of Spezza, there's one moment in my entire lifetime that I'll never forget.
The
And it's
laugh?
when he absolutely walked Sheldon Surrey in overtime.
Yeah, of course.
Surrey he went for the massive check center ice in overtime, and I was like, that's not the person to do it against, not
That's
Jason
also
Spezza.
it's also Sheldon Surrey. It's not the person to try to attempt to make these things. I love Sheldon Surrey, man. What a brain
Yeah.
that guy had. He was unbelievable. But no, I thought you were gonna say his laugh, Jason Spezza's laugh.
You know what? That's true. I guess if we're taking it off the ice, I gotta definitely go with the laugh.
Okay, so last question to you, and so we have 6 Canadian teams or 7?
Yep.
Why am I an
7.
idiot? Yeah. So how many of them are in the playoffs next year?
Let's be optimistic and say 4. I think we can lock Toronto in.
Yeah.
I think we can lock Edmonton in.
Yeah.
I think that Calgary has a lot of question marks. But at the
I
same
think
time,
Edmonton has
like,
a lot of question marks. I mean, we didn't get into it that much, but they have like question marks on D and in between the pipes. So
100%. I just think
show how
that,
good McDavid is.
yeah, it's just if you have McDavid and Draisaitl, you're giving your team a chance to be in the playoffs. The Pacific Division wasn't that deep this year, I found. But I mean, I think that if Calgary slips out, you're giving an opportunity for Vancouver to sneak in. But then they're going to have to compete with Vegas, who should be a lot better next year. They're going to have to compete with the Kings, who are on the come up. And then you'll still have those same names. You'll have the Nashvilles, you'll have the Dallas kind of hovering around that wild card spot. But I mean, Winnipeg, I don't know what went wrong there, how it just went so terribly wrong, because they didn't really change all that much. So if they can get back to, if they can get a new coach in there, get some breath of fresh air, there's a chance they can get back to the playoff picture. I think Montreal's a ways away. Ottawa can maybe be competitive, but
I think Ottawa can make it next year. They just need, I mean, it's not that the division is really hard right now. I mean, Boston, I don't know how good Boston's going to be. Montreal, we can wash them. Buffalo, too, they're kind of like in a weird transition as well.
Well, that's
so Ottawa could finish second or third in this division if they play well, and
part of it will depend on free agency too, if they can get anybody. But like you said, like I can see Detroit, I can see Buffalo both on the come up. I mean, we've been saying that about Buffalo for how many years now, and every year it's the same story. But maybe this year's the year where things change. But at the same time, I think you're still going to see like 5 solid teams out of the Metro with the Rangers, the Penguins, the Caps, the Wild, and if the Islanders can figure it out, yeah, exactly. If the Islanders can figure it out, because same thing, like I mean, they were 1 game away from taking Tampa out 2 years ago. Yeah. And then everything just kind of went to crap. So
the East is tough. It's tough to play to make it in. So it'll be interesting if the Habs can make it. I doubt it. The Habs won't be in for another 3 seasons. I think 3 years is a good number. They might make it on their 3rd year, but I think we need to give them a 3-year rebuild just to see what these guys will do.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit unrealistic to expect a similar rebuild that Gordon had in New York, because you don't just walk into an Adam Fox and an Artemi Panarin every day, or you don't get a Jacob Trouba that forces his way onto your team. Like those are 3 pretty massive pieces to any team. So we'll see what happens. I think it's going to take a little bit longer than we fans are probably hoping for. But like you said, like I think that 3 years is a realistic timeline for when they can start being competitive again.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so too. Real quick, who do the Habs draft first overall?
I pick right, personally.
I feel like everybody's going right. I have no idea. I haven't watched Slafkovsky play a fucking second that I'm aware of, so I can't say anything. But right's been the consensus for so long, and not all of a sudden everybody's kind of second guessing that. So we'll see what happens. I mean, Bob McKenzie came out, and I think Slafkovsky was number 1, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, the guy's huge, but he's a winger.
I mean, it's just weird because like I don't really feel like Wright's done anything to hurt his stock, but maybe Slafkovsky's done more to really just raise it to the point where you got to have at least a seed of doubt in your mind.
Maybe, but at like 6'5", whatever he is, 230 pounds, it's hard to ignore that kind of size. But the Habs have always needed center. Shane Wright's a pure center, an excellent center at that. everybody was willing to tank the season last year to get right number 1 overall. So let's do it. Hopefully the Habs do it. On Monday, I'll be interviewing Alex the Intern. Well, interviewing Alex the Intern are going to go through the draft, and we're going to see who the Habs can take first, 26th, 33rd, and then so on and so forth. And we're going to break it down that way. So, John, I appreciate you coming on for episode 2 of Summer of Terry, man. It was fantastic. It's always nice to hear your intelligent insights on hockey that I don't have.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me. Good to talk to you again, and hopefully we'll get back on again soon.